Catria is gone and the meta is in an absolute swirl. This is the meta report where we talk about the forefront of competitive play in all the different modes, and let's start off with light and dark season. Whew. Okay, first off we're going to talk about Gatot, and this seems like a weird point to make, right? Why am I bringing up Gatot? Because we all know that he's been on kind of a steady downflow since nukes have just gotten ridiculous. But here's the thing. He has the potential to bounce back. The main way you take down Omni tanks when you don't have Catria is AoEs, and he helps you defeat them. So just keep him in mind. I've kind of got him bookmarked here. Next up, we need to talk about flyer lines, and I mean, what can I say? These were already accelerating like crazy, and now we get to this point where we look at this and Catria balls have been nerfed. This is going to be the main defense for a bit. And so Hinoka, the key piece to that, has again gained value. This is nuts, right? And I mean, you're looking at this, you guys have gone up against, you've seen this many times. As Hinoka comes in, she gets danced, she smacks a couple units. Even a team that should have beat this in Gulveg didn't get to this time. Summoners, this is a very powerful defense archetype and something that you need to have a counter for. So I kind of want to talk about Seliph and really Omni tanks in conjunction with Claude. This is an interesting use of Claude, just a kind of reminder that you can also use him as an offensive weapon, and he is an amazing hit and sit unit because of damage reduction. The reason Omni tanks are struggling so much right now is because they don't have piercing. It's why Alir is such an amazing Omni tank. It's not because she has a lot of speed, she does, but the combination of piercing and that brave weapon are just potent. Every fire season, that's the unit that you want your defense to be able to defeat. But summoners, that is the thing that I expect to happen soon, is that somehow we start getting piercing onto our Omni tanks. Be on the lookout. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I do believe it's coming. I mean, they usually try to sell us things around Christmas, maybe New Year's, but keep on the lookout for that. When that happens, it is something that you want to get very, very badly. The last thing we need to talk about is Ruse. I mean, this is the thing on everyone's mind. I rushed out to get this skill so that I could kind of play around with it, and it is great. But I talked about this in the banner review. Understand that Catria is not gone. She is absolutely nerfed. Like I don't want you to think otherwise, but understand that she is still a very good unit. She's just not the absolute best anymore. But you're seeing even here with this Alir, who's amazing, I am having to back her up with Fallen Maria so that she can survive that lethality from Claude. That Claude did not get a brave attack. So understand that there are a lot more things going on, and your defense is not dead just because Catria is gone. It just means you have to rearrange things. It also means that while tanks get better, nukes get worse. And there are going to be a select set of nukes that you are not going to be able to use. I'm thinking in the, just a while ago, I had a video on Legendary Lyn and how she could be a very viable unit when paired with Catria. She is no longer someone you can rely on. It's the same bucket as Legendary Alm. Those type of older nukes are going to have struggles, and you're going to need to start looking towards the new ones, like the Soniki that gets the Brave hit as a cav, and of course, Claude, who's just amazing, especially when backed up by Brave Robin. All right, Astra Anima, and we're going to talk about a lot of the same things here. I've got some Reform up, but again, I'm talking more about Omni tanks in general. It is so hard to outspeed some of these nukes right now. You're seeing Claude come in, and I mean, you saw it in the other video, but particularly in Astra season, the hard part is you can't debuff Claude in this setup because Freyr exists. And Freyr takes away all of his debuffs. So it really is a who can buff who the most, and Claude gets a lot of buffs. It means that you can't really mess with what's going on, and you have to take exactly what the defense gives you. That's not a place you want to be, especially for Omni tanks. You want to be able to game the system somehow. And right now it's tough to do that. But let's move on and talk about something that you guys really need to pay attention to, and that's offensive structures. I know you guys love these. I see so many defenses come in with a full line. And in the days where Catria balls were the main defense, it was okay for you to have a full line. Flyer lines have been getting more and more popular, and it may not happen this next Astra season, but understand it's coming. Catria balls will wane more and more unless something comes along and bolsters them back up. That means that a full line of structures is going to hurt you. Just like it did in the past with the rally traps and all of that great stuff, that is going to be more of a thing that's happening where more range is covered by the defense and you're going to have to be able to hide. Get rid of your structures. They're not that good. So we need to talk about the ruse skills again because they're going to affect things differently per season. One of the things that I do want to mention, and I'm going to link a video from Vandarf, and he shows a little bit about how odd recovery is working with teams. And right now, odd recovery is a counter for Schism, which is what Ruse is spitting out. So keep that in mind, and it's something that could kind of revive your Catria ball if you need that. And Fallen Maria is an excellent user. But you're going to have save balls more in Astra Anima, and that brings kind of a different thing that you're looking at. You're really going to want counter disrupt skills to come in and help you out. But these things are definitely changing things, and they get around Freyr. Freyr does not block Schism in regards to triangle attack. So understand though, this is my defense. I've played against it many times in many different ways, and it still took me 7 minutes to get this clear. The ruse skills are good, but they do not solve all of your problems. I actually don't mind them the more I play with them. So just don't think that you're going to put ruse skills on a unit and bang, things are going to be amazing and you're going to be able to beat teams by just sticking units out there and turning. That will be the case with some defenses, but a well-made defense is still going to be very hard to go up against. As far as Astra Mythics, I mean, I am probably putting my ruse skill on Aether, but Aether is by far the best user. I just have a merged up Aether. We didn't talk about it in light season, but Milla and Asker right now are the best ones, but you probably have a new mythic coming in light season very soon, and there's a possibility that that one might be able to use it better. There's really less to go over in Chaos Season, just to be honest with you. The meta there is very RNG based. It always has been. That's not a bad thing. Like, it's still really fun, but I mean, you're seeing this Lucia, and I mean, Claude just absolutely smacks her. Keep in mind that is before you take into account triangle attack. Like, that unit would take out Lucia whether they had triangle attack or not. Omni tanks in general are not the best way to go in Chaos Season right now. So this next one is interesting, and I wanted to talk about how Catria balls were kind of falling off already before this whole ruse thing even happened. And the main thing is hit and run strategies have just become so powerful. Kagero is at their lead, and I mean, you're seeing this team just comes in and takes apart my defense, absolutely demolish them. And it's a thing of beauty. I used Kagero all Astra and Chaos Season, and I use her a lot in Light as well, and she really demolishes a ton of things. So Catria balls were kind of already falling off. Just keep that in mind. I do want to talk about Gatekeeper. I do think he has a lot of value, even with Catria balls starting to fall off. A lot of Chaos Season teams rely on Warp to get more area out of their units. And I mean, you can see this was kind of a fun one because it stopped Assault Troop and it stopped Ash as well. And it let me kind of pick things off with Kranya, which was fun. I liked being able to use my Kranya since she was a bonus unit. But that's something to keep in mind as you're going through this. I think he is an excellent support in most modes. He does tick down just a little bit in Aether Raids because Catria balls will most likely tick down as well. But that doesn't mean he's a bad support. I still think he's very, very good. And I mean, you can see it in this after this next attack with Cranya. Like, all of these units should just be swarming, and instead they can't really do anything. I wanted to talk briefly about Ploy, and in particular, we've got a lot of really neat dancers right now that we can use, and I think Plumeria is one of the better ones for Chaos Season, although I do use her in Astra as well. Res Ploy is sneaky good, and one of the things you're seeing here is they've got Legendary Elowood backing up Alm, and what they're not realizing, at least I don't think they realized, is Ploy was taking that away every time, and you can see a little bit of confusion here as they're trying to go in and destroy things, and they're really having a difficulty doing that. It ends up getting them in the end, and that's because they don't have bonus double like they planned. It is not a skill you build around, but it is a skill that is very nice to have in Ploy. And of course, the charge from Plumeria is pretty amazing as well. The last thing I wanted to talk about, of course, was Bolt Tower. And I guess maybe this is more of a recanting. I mentioned the fact that Medius had kind of lost a little bit of value, and I do still think that's true. But man alive, it was really arrogant of me not to put Medius on this team instead of Freyr, and the Bolt Tower just absolutely destroyed me in Chaos, and I kind of feel like I should be riding on the board. I will respect the Bolt Tower. I respect the Bolt Tower. Yeah. So we've gotten to our Aether Raid summary, and the first thing I want to talk about is Gale Force, and I do think it has ticked up just a little bit, and the main reason is that because flyer lines will become more prevalent, I think it is easier for Gale Force teams to work. And I mean, the reason being is we had so many bulky units that it was very hard for Gale Force teams to really punch through. You had scenarios where you could have all 7 of your team just be absolute monsters, and that meant if even one of those kills missed, then your Gale Force team had a lot of trouble. Because flyer lines are generally teams with less bulk, I mean, you're seeing me get pinned right here. This was a fantastic clear. I do think they've ticked up, but I still have all the same complaints. These teams are very powerful, they take a lot of investment, and most Gale Force users don't really, they take for granted the amount of time that they have put into Gale Force to learn it. And because of that, they somehow make it sound easier than it is. So understand that it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of resources. Next up, we have flyer lines. And so flyer lines contrasted with cav lines. The big difference is the terrain you can use. Because cav lines need such open terrain, it's harder to use that against other Gale Force or player phase teams. That is the huge advantage of flyer lines, is you can use, like, this mountain map is wonderful to stop a lot of different player phase teams. Now, Golveg is the best way to stop this, but you can see a lot of times it is more difficult than players really understand, and because of that, craziness happens and they end up with units going down. Next up, I want to talk about hit and run teams. We talked about Kagero. I am a huge fan. I struggled with how much to put hit and run teams up. Like, I think they have been, I think they're one of the best offensive ways to play right now, just because of all the new toys we've gotten. I think they also are easier to get into than something like Gale Force. But saying that they've gone way up in value, I've been saying they've been up in value for quite some time, and I think they've just gotten slightly better. So we'll see how that goes. Again, with flyer lines becoming more prevalent, hit and run teams actually are harder to use, so that may be a thing coming. The last thing, we've gone over tanks so much, I don't think I needed to go over them anymore, but they have gained a lot of value in Veil and Ruse 4. What can I say? I will say the problem with that statement is that makes it sound like all tanks have gained value, and technically that's true, but it's still very hard to use tanks that aren't named Brave Corrin and Legendary Alir. You certainly can. There are definitely units that you can get a lot of value out of, but we've talked about speed creep has become absolutely insane, and because of that, it's very hard sometimes to match speed. You almost have to do that with your tanks. So just keep that in mind. Honestly, there's not just a huge amount of things to cover in Arena. I'm going back over Alencia because I am just amazed by that unit. And I feel like she got even better as we went on and saw new builds. Like the Gambit attack speed prime 4 build on her is kind of funny and insane. There are a ton of things you can do with her, and I think she will be good for a very long time. She would be high, if you were to ask me, she would be high on my list of legendary merge projects. I don't know that plus 10ing a unit is really the best thing right now, but she would definitely be up there for me as a choice for someone that I would want to plus 10. Other than that, I did want to talk about colorless. This is not a joke here. You guys know I keep track of this through my stats on every banner I put on the stats of how easy it is to get certain units, and colorless has been continuing to get worse and worse and worse. It's kind of crazy. And I mean, we are truly, the joke was always colorless hell. We are truly in colorless hell. If you want to merge up a colorless unit, it is going to be very tough. Just understand that. And yeah, I would hesitate to summon on a colorless unit without having a spark right now. Keep that in mind as you go on. Of course, I've got Ninian here. I have a merged up Ninian, and she's one of my favorite units. But it's just a reminder that dancers in Arena are amazing. If you don't have a dancer built up in Arena, what are you doing? Like that, it just. I've said it time and time again, but it makes the mode palatable. It is so much more fun to have a dancer. It makes the mode enjoyable. It really, really does. Build up a dancer. You don't need Ninian. You can use Racing, but dancers in that mode are fantastic. And the last thing I want to talk about is armors. And I know we just got Kellen as a new one, and I know there are a lot of fans, and I mean the costume is stupid cute. Like, I love his sprite. But armors right now are suffering. Like, the nukes are incredibly powerful, and you have dancers that increase the range, and you have Chroms that increase the range, and you have Alencia that increases the range. It is very, very difficult not to get sniped in some way with an armor. I would not suggest you build one for an arena core. Even if they're the highest scoring unit you can get, I would just save up for a better one. Like, seriously, it is too painful. Like, just move along, do something else. Of course, we can't get out of here without talking about Summoner Duels. And first up, we have Summoner Duels S. And I've got to say that Gambit is the skill right now. If you are a melee unit, it is almost a thing where, why aren't you using Gambit? Usually the answer is because they don't have the fodder. It is fantastic on most units. This is a setup I got from Adara. I saw it and had to try it because it looks so much fun. And I mean, you're seeing Lucia just absolutely smack things. But the thing I really want you to pay attention to at the end of this here is they give up because they can't take this unit down. That is a Deadeye Chrom. That is a Marth that's really buffed up. There are a lot of units that should at least be able to touch this unit, and they can't. Gambit is really good. This was a fun team to use, and I think Lucia in SD is going to be here for a bit, just because denying specials is so powerful. On the note of denying specials, I don't have a replay with Vale. I didn't get to make a team with her. I do think she has gone up in value. Understand this is not like sky high through the roof value, and this is SDS that I think she's gone up in value. I don't love her as much in SDR because those spots are so hard to get. Like, that is a very coveted thing. But I think in an SDS context, I think she can be really fun in a Catria ball scenario. I think she hits hard, so she has that, and she provides the support of Scowl. I think this is a very good unit. You're going to have a lot of fun with her. Next up, I wanted to talk about Chrom, and I made the joke on Twitter the other day that this was Chrom Duels, and I mean, he kind of rules this mode, and the Crom to have right now, believe it or not, is legendary. He is absolutely incredible, and particularly, and I got asked the question, the build you want is the physical null follow-up. Like that really does an absolute number on him and changes him into a beast. He is amazing, and I've got him in Summoner Duels S, but honestly, Summoner Duels R good. This is a very, very good unit, and Crom the duo has gone down a bit. He doesn't have the same oomph that legendary Crom does, which is crazy. I never thought I'd see that day, but Crom's Refine is very good in the context of Summoner Duels. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Marth, and the thing, and this has been kind of a quiet deal, but there's two things that have kind of stopped Marth. The first is the counter disrupt skills, which by themselves weren't enough. Like you always had those, but Hinoka in general couldn't get enough speed. The other thing is we've started seeing cracks in the way you get enough speed on him is through attack speed unity, and then you also have legendary Robin with on guard grand strategy. So you had this way that you could stack up stuff on him, and because grand strategy is starting to be nerfed by ploys, he is a less viable candidate. But the other thing is we're seeing a lot more melee threats. And we're seeing that particularly in the realm of Lucia and units that can warp around and have similar range to ranged units. I mean, what can I say? So I'm not saying Marth is bad, please don't take that, but right now he's a Summoner Duels S unit. In the past, he was a Summoner Duels R unit. Speaking of Summoner Duels R, we have some stuff to talk about here, and the team you're seeing here was so much fun. This is one that I saw Akutsu use, and I believe they got it from someone else. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please, but this team was so much fun. Absolutely enjoyed this. And the thing is, it had a lot of builds on units that I wanted to try out already. Citrine I hadn't been able to try out. It had the new Thor build that I'll show you in just a little bit, and it had a just bonkers Alencia build with the Gambit and attack speed prime for great stuff, right? The thing you want to look at is this happened a lot. A lot of folks didn't need Catria to do all the things that they needed to do. She used to be the great equalizer, and we're getting such powerful nukes now that is not the case. So the reason Catria is ticking down is not because of Ruse, because Ruse is very, very hard to use properly in Summoner Duels, especially early game, which is the most important part. But just the fact that we have other ways to get around her now. Seliph has dropped off the map in SDR. In the context of SDR, he is just not it right now. SDS, I still see him used regularly as an AoE unit. I think he can be very good in that mode. In SDR, he is not going to make it. Legendary Ellawood is a great unit, and the thing that we're seeing is this, where we used to have different types of teams, we're seeing them kind of merge into one. Like, is this a warping team or is this a raid boss team? Yes. There are two things going on there. It's one of the things that makes it so powerful is it has different modes that you can go into. We talked about that early on in my original Summoner Duels video way back when, but when you have a team that can go into different modes and different ways to be used, it's very fun. And we're seeing more of an ability to do that with your teams, which is a good place to be. So Thor is used in this team, and Thor is bonkers. The ranged flyers have gotten so many neat skills, and she can take advantage of them all. I know that's hyperbole, and it's not really the case, but there are a lot of fun things you can do with her. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Duo Asker. The big thing is we are seeing so many ways to reduce cooldown now that he is not as good as he used to be. He used to be a unit that you could just guarantee was on every Summoner Duels R team, and that has fallen off in really the last 6 months. So, but he's still very good. I mean, you can see like Catria has ticked down just about as much. Like, this is a unit that you can use if you have him built up. You're still using him and you're enjoying him, but his heyday has kind of passed, and he is just an excellent unit instead of a dominant unit. So anyway, With that, let's talk about different investments because there are a lot of implications to this slide. The first one is Aether. I talked about her, but she is the queen of ruse. She is the perfect unit to use this on because she doesn't destroy your action economy as you are using it. I mean, yeah, this is the only unit, you notice I have this at +1 investments. I would suggest that you actually build this unit to +10 if you don't already have an Astra core. Like if you don't have an Astra core, I think this is a great target for you. She's an excellent unit in all the modes, and I think you'll enjoy her a lot. This was the Thor build that I was talking about that I really enjoyed. You still have Stillwater. There are probably some other options, but I think for most of what you're using her for, Stillwater is going to be the best. But Sabotage AR and Soaring Guidance, I mean, the combination of those two is really powerful. You add that on to Attack Oath Echo, and there is for a lot of the maps where they've got to spread out, there is a case there where she can warp over and get further range, and then everyone can use Soaring Guidance to kind of warp around and create havoc. The other thing is, I mean, her duo skill has gotten so much more powerful because everything is a bonus. She gets rid of bonuses, and once you do that, I mean, that's a lot of teams just don't work. Like, it's nuts. Yeah. The last one here is Veil. And honestly, I mean, this is pretty much stock Veil with Stillwater replaced. That's all you need, and I think at a +1 she is very powerful. I think she's great in Summoner Duels S. I think she's fantastic in Aether raids. I think she is a wonderful unit to invest in. Whew, that was a lot. Don't panic. Okay, I understand. Yes, Catria has been nerfed for sure. But there are still other things you can do. There's still very powerful defense archetypes if you like that, and there's still things you can use. Catria is not gone. She's just not the most dominant support unit in the game. Summoners, we've got a huge month coming up with a new book and 3 new legendary / mythics coming up, and I cannot wait to see it. Members, thank you so much for all that you do. You guys are absolutely amazing. If you want to look, I just recently did an Astra unit builds for all of the Astra units, and if you want to check that out, I appreciate it. I love your feedback. I'm trying to make that into a thing, and I would love to know what makes that good for you and what would help you out. I already have a suggestion to make more team builds, and I'm definitely going to try that out. Whew. Take care, and schedule an appointment with your FEHologist real soon.